And as we went to the middle of the 18th century, those people coming to Wheeling would increase dramatically, because not only do we have river transport and we have the road, but in late in the 1840s, we're going to open up a bridge. And that gives us some more advantages, and a couple years later, we add a railroad to that. So we put ourselves in a very good situation. Now, one of the reasons that Wheeling developed in the first place is what geographers would talk about its site advantages. It's close to water. It has relatively fertile soils, particularly in the river bottoms. Okay? And so that's pretty good. But Wheeling's real advantage is not its site advantages, because after a while those site things will actually become disadvantages. Too many floods, not enough room to expand, so on. But what Wheeling really has is a situational advantage. And a situation is where something is located in relationship to something else. So here's Wheeling. Imagine Wheeling, the northern panhandle, smack dab in the middle of the panhandle. Okay? And what's going on in the west? Ohio becomes a state. Indiana becomes a state. Illinois becomes a state. By 1818, by the time that the road reaches Wheeling, Illinois is a state. Indiana is a state. And eventually that national road takes a while, then it'll go across Ohio, then it'll go across Indiana, and it will go across part of Illinois till it stops in Vandalia, Illinois. Remember, the original national road and Route 40 are not, one is part of the other, but the other is not part of, okay. That makes sense to me. It probably makes sense to my wife because she's used to that kind of logic, but if that doesn't make sense to you, I apologize.
Well, explain it to me.
Okay. Route 40 is a road that is relatively recent. Route 40 is a road that extends from Atlantic City, New Jersey to San Francisco. Part of Route 40 is the old National Road. Okay? But the original National Road never went farther west than Vandalia, Illinois. Okay? And the reason for it is that it didn't need to. And the reason it didn't need to is that roads will become obsolete by the 1860s for travel. What you might find interesting is that what causes roads to be rebuilt in the United States at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, is the advent, not of the automobile, the bicycle. And when we developed the pneumatic tire for the bicycle, there was a real push to improve the quality of roads. Roads will fall into disuse after railroads come because there's no point in traveling except for local conditions. When my mother was in high school at Weir High, and Weir High played Parkersburg, how did Weir High kids go to the game? They took a train. If you were in Wheeling and you wanted to go to Steubenville, you took a train. If you wanted to go to Columbus, you took a train. If you wanted to go to Waynesburg, you took a train. But in the 1820s, 30s, and into the 40s, it's the National Road. And that just brings people in. And if you have the transportation nexus, then things will develop. And let me give you an example. The hockey team in Wheeling, nickname, Nailers. And you know why? This is Nail City. 40% of all the nails made in the United States in the 19th century were made in Wheeling. Now, you know the tragedy of that is that the last nail factory in Wheeling closed or closes this month, LaBelle. It's been around for since 1852. It's going to close, okay? All these people are moving west. Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. People live in houses. Remember, what's the nickname of Illinois? It's the Prairie State. And what don't you find in prairies? Trees. Okay? So you're not going to make log cabins. So we come up with a new way of making houses. And it's called the Chicago frame or balloon frame. We still use it today. Use 2x4s to put up the walls. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a 19th century structure. There's one down in Marietta at one of their museums. There is a 2x4 there that runs 2 stories. One piece of wood. Okay? Now, the balloon frame only works because of one thing. A nail. Nails used to be handmade. And then somebody invented a machine that will cut a nail. You've heard the expression cut nail. And a cut nail is called that because a nail, that nail has 4 sides. Okay? And it's cut from a piece of metal, maybe that wide, X long, and it goes into a machine. The machine cuts it. And then it flips it, cuts it again, so that when you take those 2 pieces of metal back and put them together, they'll fit. You know, they fat end on this side, fat end on this side, and we start making nails. And from the 1830s to the 1890s, we made 50 million kegs of nails. We're making 500,000 kegs of nails a year. Now, if you're making nails, how do you ship them? Well, you can't ship them in bags, so you need somebody who makes barrels, kegs. So you have to have, what do you call a barrel maker? Cooper. Well, how do you hold your staves together? With iron hoops. Okay? Now, how do you get those nails to market? Well, you've got to have some system of transportation. So we have these huge wagons, Conestoga wagons, wagons that carry 4, 6, 8, 10 tons of materials. Okay? There was a traveling salesman who came into Wheeling in the 1840s, and when he came into Wheeling, he said he had never seen such a town with such a vibrant activity. He said, I had a heck of a time going across the street. I came across the street a little while ago. Didn't have that. He said, every place that I looked to stay, he said, I don't care whether it was the best hotel or a pigsty inn, there was no place. They were all taken. And he rented a horse, got a lunch, and he rode out to what's about where Wheeling Park is. And he sat there and he watched the people come through. And he said it was just unbelievable. He said there were wagon trains that were going east and west. He said one day I counted 20 wagons in a row filled with nails, heading out, going up towards St. Clairsville, and going west. Well, where do you get the wagons? Well, you have to have a wagon maker. You have to have wheels. You have to have horses on, just like an automobile. You've got to put gas in it. You've got to feed it. You've got to water it. Horses can only walk, 10, 15 miles a day before you change horses. So you have to have relay stations. And then you start to have, if there are people going along the national road, then we have to have places for people to stop. So, for example, go west from Washington, Pennsylvania, go 5 miles and you come to about Taylorstown. You go another 5 miles and you come into Claysville. You go another 5 miles.